All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to tackle a big one, faithfulness. Now you might think it's all about trying harder, right? Just being more disciplined. But what if there's a whole other way to look at it? Let's dive in and find out.
So right off the bat, this quote from Paul David Tripp just throws a wrench in how we usually think about this stuff. You know that mental checklist we all have? Be more patient, be more kind. Tripp basically says, nope, that's not it. He's suggesting we've got it completely backwards. What if these things, these virtues, aren't something you achieve, but something you're given?
In that idea, a gift, not a goal. That's our first big shift in thinking. We're going to explore how faithfulness isn't just another item on your self-improvement to-do list. Instead, it's something that grows out of a transformation that's, well, way deeper.
Okay, so this list here comes from the book of Galatians. It's famously known as the fruit of the Spirit, 9 qualities that are all connected. And for our purposes today, we are zooming right in on number 7, faithfulness.
So what does this all lead to? Well, it points to this really powerful idea that the whole point isn't just getting a clean slate, forgiveness. It's about a complete transformation. I mean, think about it. This means real, radical changes on the table. Someone who is just not a patient person can actually become patient. Someone who struggles with being faithful can become faithful.
Now, to really get to the heart of what faithfulness means here, we've got to do a little linguistic detective work. We have to go back to the original Greek. Because as it turns out, there's this one little word that's doing double duty, holding 2 super powerful and really different meanings.
And that word is pistis. You'll see it all over the New Testament. But here's the kicker. Here's the catch. Depending on where it shows up, translators had to make a choice, and they translated it into 2 completely different English words.
So let's break that down. On one side, pistis can mean faith. That's your internal belief, right? Your conviction. It's all about trusting in God. But then, on the other side, pistis can mean faithfulness, and that's totally different. That's an external quality. It's about being reliable, being trustworthy. It's about others being able to trust you.
Okay, so the big question is, which one is it for the fruit of the Spirit? And the answer, according to our source, is crystal clear. In this context, it's not about the faith you possess inside, it's about the faithfulness you show on the outside. It is all about being reliable, steadfast, a person people can count on.
Theologian Tim Keller gives us this really great way to think about it. He says, at its heart, faithfulness is loyalty. It's being reliable. And the opposite? It's not just being disloyal. It's being an opportunist, a fair-weather friend. But here's where it gets interesting. Keller also warns about a counterfeit version. Being loyal even when you should be speaking up. Love without truth. So real, genuine faithfulness has to walk this line, balancing that deep loyalty with uncomfortable truth.
All right, so if this isn't something we can just white-knuckle our way into, if we can't just decide to be more faithful, then where on earth does it come from? And this leads us right to the core argument here. Our faithfulness is supposed to be a mirror, a reflection of a much bigger, much more perfect faithfulness. The source material keeps pointing us back to this one, consistent theme in the Bible. The bedrock, the foundation for any human faithfulness, is the character of God Himself. So, the starting block isn't us trying harder. It's His fundamental nature.
And you see this idea pop up again and again. The point is, even when humans are unreliable, God's character doesn't change. It's not a mood, it's His identity. He remains faithful because, He can't not be faithful. It's who He is.
And it all ties back to promises. The whole argument is that we can have hope because the one making the promise is completely and utterly reliable. So the picture we're getting is of this constant, unchanging, dependable source.
But listen, this isn't just some abstract, philosophical idea about a distant God. No, the source material makes it really concrete by pointing to Jesus as the perfect, living, breathing example of this virtue. He's basically faithfulness with skin on.
I mean, you really can't get any more direct than this. In the book of Revelation, one of the titles Jesus is given is literally faithful and true. It's not just a name, it's His job description. It's presented as the absolute core of who He is.
Okay, so if God is the ultimate model of faithfulness and Jesus is the perfect embodiment of it, what about us? What does that mean for you and me? This is where we get to the practical part. How in the world do we actually mirror that in our own lives?
This verse here is a game changer because it brings up this idea of being a steward. Now, a steward isn't the owner, right? They're the manager. They're entrusted with someone else's stuff.
And for a steward, there's really only one thing on the performance review that matters. Were they faithful? It's the absolute #1 requirement.
Let's break that down a bit. It really comes down to 2 simple steps. First, the steward receives everything. The gifts, the opportunities, the resources, none of it is self-generated. It's all given. And second, their only job, their one job, is to manage all that stuff faithfully. And notice the key word there. The focus is on the process of being trustworthy, not necessarily on the final results.
And that idea leads us to our final point, which honestly might be the most important takeaway of this whole thing. The source draws this really clear, bright line between our job and God's job.
This is so key. Look, our job description is just one word: faithful. God's job is to bring the results, to make things fruitful or successful. So think of it this way. We handle the process. We use what we've been given as best we can. God handles the outcome, the growth. And the argument is that at the end of the day, what's required of us is our faithfulness, not a certain level of success.
So let's wrap this all up. Being faithful isn't about gritting your teeth and just trying harder to be a better person. It's positioned as a response. We can be faithful because God is first faithful to us. It's like the moon reflecting the sun's light. The light isn't coming from the moon itself, it's just reflecting a much greater source.
And that leaves us with one last, kind of provocative question to chew on. We talk all the time about whether we can trust God. But after all of this, maybe the more important question to ask ourselves is, how much can He trust us?